Hello, everyone. It's Janita Branch with Purpose for a Purpose. Today is Casual Conversations. And so hopefully you've been following along on social media and you know that we are doing a topic today. We're going to be talking about healthy relationships, healthy friendships. And I'm so excited to have a beautiful person inside and out joining us today by the name of Jennifer Moore. And I chose to do healthy relationships and friendships because it's Valentine's, it's the week of Valentine's, it's the month of love. And a lot of times we just think about those romantic relationships and just focus on that, which is great. But we want to make sure that we are having healthy relationships and healthy friendships. And so that's what we are going to talk about today. So I'm really excited. And she'll be joining us here soon. And so actually here she is. And so I'm really excited. So we're going to invite Miss Jennifer Moore to join us. And let's see. Ooh, hold up. And there we go.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, my love. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous.
Good. Well, welcome to Casual Conversations.
Awesome. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. So I am. I'm drinking tea today because my throat is hurting. It's that time of year,
Yes,
So
definitely.
yeah. So you'll see me sipping every now and again. But
Yeah, I have my water here too, so it's all good.
yes, good. Well, I was just kind of telling everyone what Casual Conversations is about this month, which is healthy relationships, healthy friendships.
Yes.
Um, Later this month, I will be talking actually about marriage, but today we're talking about healthy relationships, healthy friendships. We all are in some type of relationship, whether
hmm
romantic or platonic. We want them to be healthy. And so I'm excited that have decided to join because I
Me
know that you
too.
have a lot to share,
I
some good
do.
stuff. I got some notes. I got pen and paper. I'm ready.
So good.
And I just know all the questions that I want to ask.
hmm
I know we're not gonna get through it, so we'll just go ahead and set it up. We'll probably be a part two at some point.
Yes,
So, and
definitely.
I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely okay with it. So, before we jump in, can you just kind of tell everyone like who you are, a little bit about what you do?
Yes. So my name is Jennifer Moore, and I am a life coach. I went to school for psychology, and I did a cognate and life coaching. So that's a part of my degree as well. And I just really fell in love with the aspect of really helping people that may not have a mental illness, but still have problems, and kind of what I like to call first world problems, but they're problems nonetheless because they undergird the bigger issues that we see, um, like depression and anxiety and some of the other things that we see um, as quote unquote normal people, but we still have issues that we need to deal with. I am passionate about relationships because I feel like every relationship that we have, whether it's to another person, to our kids, to our spouse, to our friends, to business, to money, it actually reflects the relationship that we have with ourselves. And so relationships really can become a really good place to see yourself, see some of the things that you're dealing with, see places of growth, strengths and weaknesses. And I've actually been able to implement a lot of these things that I'll be sharing with you within my marriage with my husband. We've been married for going on 12 years this year. So
Okay.
I've been able to put some things into practice as far as with a spouse, but also just having friendships and seeing how I show up in different areas of my life. So just looking forward to being able to contribute to this space.
Yeah, you said something that I didn't even think about, like our kids.
Mm,
We do have relationships. I didn't think about that. A lot
yeah.
of times I think we look at it as like I'm just the parent. I'm the parent. They're the kids. But there's a relationship there,
Yes.
and I think what we're going to talk about will apply to that too. And you said money. I
Mm.
was like, okay, yes, I'm ready to be schooled today. So, Like, I think I
Definitely.
might have some issues. No, I think it just translates, into a lot of different areas. It's not just that the common things that we think about the husband wife relationship, and
Right.
just with our girlfriends or guy friends or
Right.
even our family. So yes, let's just get right to it, girl.
Let's
Let's
do
just do that.
that.
So, like when we're talking about relationships, like how can we define, like, what's a healthy relationship? How can we define that?
So I was thinking about this. I like to think of a healthy relationship as a space where you feel safe and
Mhm.
free to be your authentic self.
Okay.
A healthy relationship. So where you're able to relate to another person, usually, or something else outside of you, unless you're talking about your relationship with yourself. But when it's healthy, there is an underlying purpose that you both share, and you feel safe and you feel the freedom to be able to be authentic in that space. Is
Okay.
you feel empowered to be yourself in that space, whether that's something that you have to grow in, or whether that comes from that other person encouraging that. There
Hmm.
is a space to be yourself and to grow.
Okay. Yeah. So you said something though. You didn't. You touched on it, then you didn't, which was to authentic with ourselves.
Yes.
Gosh, that's tough. I just wonder, if that. So if we can't be authentic with ourselves,
Mm,
then ideally we can't be authentic with other people.
this is
It would
correct.
be right.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So that is. So it all starts with us. Is how I feel.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
if I can't. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's interesting because when I think like, so for me, this is something I've struggled with, just in growing up and people pleasing and kind of saying and doing what I think other people want me to say and do, and
Hmm.
not feeling that safety or not feeling the freedom to be myself. So that kind of goes back to that healthy relationship part. But it really shows up in, sometimes we look at like, oh, I can't be myself here. They are making me feel this way, or they are doing this, or they cut me off, or they do this or that. But when we really put it back on ourselves, we can see like, am I authentic with me? Do I listen to me? Do I regard what I like? Do I pay attention to my needs and the things
Hmm.
that I care about, the things that I love, the things that I value? Am I creating a space within myself for that? Because again, the relationship is going to mirror what you're doing and what you're not doing with yourself, even with authenticity.
Yeah. That's so today I was working on some stuff, and I kind of got to this place of like talking about just how we like being positive and how we
Yeah.
talk to ourselves. Okay, this is an area for me. So like I'm really tough on myself. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
really, really tough. And there's a book that I'm reading, and it deals with being authentic and identity. And one of the activities is to take 24 hours and to write down like the things that we say to ourselves.
Mm.
And at first I was like, oh yeah, no big deal, because I'm good. And then as I began that journey, I was like, this really might need some work. Like there are some things I'm really good at managing and just like being positive
Mm-hmm.
about to myself. But then there's other areas that I'm just really, really tough on
Yes.
myself, and I'm not encouraging myself. I'm not empowering I'm not loving. I'm
Yes.
not gracious,
Yes.
and so I hear what you're saying, and I'm like, it does make it difficult. Like if you can't even do it to yourself, it can be very challenging to kind of to extend that or to be that way with other
That's
people.
right. And it's crazy because there are things that I have said to myself that if I said it to my kids, they would be
Mm,
taken away from me. If I said it to
yeah.
my husband, he would leave.
Mm,
So it's amazing to see you get a self-awareness of your self-regard on
hmm.
how we are talking to ourselves. And would I say this to my best friend?
Yeah.
Most likely, if I wouldn't say it to her, why am I saying it to me? What do I think about myself to allow? And this is the thing, even with to allow those kinds of thoughts. Let me finish my sentence. But this is
Yeah.
the thing too with thoughts. It's kind of like raindrops. There are some that we can control. There's some that we can't. So I think it's important not to beat ourselves up. Like, why am I thinking this? I shouldn't be thinking this, because sometimes it is just, a brain, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. So
Mm.
there's no way that we can control and intentionally, we don't intentionally create all of them. Some of them are
Right.
triggered. Some of them are just kind of
Mm.
like the same kind of thought loop that we have or whatever. So I think it's important, even as you're watching yourself and what you're thinking about, to say, I may not choose what comes into my mind, but I do have the power to choose what stays and what I
Right.
meditate on and what I dwell on with regards
Mm.
to what I'm thinking. And it goes back even to the scripture of taking captive thoughts.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
they may fall and they may come, but I can take something captive and say, not today. Like this,
Right.
this is not
Right.
what we're going to be. And I think about even the scripture that says, whose report will you believe?
Yeah.
Like you have because if we could control every thought that came to our minds, there wouldn't be a place to practice the power that we have in choice.
Mm.
Free will is the greatest choice and the greatest power that we have, so we can freely choose what we're going to continue to think, and thoughts that we think over and over again about ourselves become our
Right.
beliefs.
Right. Yeah. That's good, Jennifer. So good. Yes. You're like, yeah. I mean, but you're right. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the things that I mean, you're right. There are thoughts that just come into our head, and we have a choice on whether we entertain the thought. But I have been in this. You
That's
have a
right.
thought, and before long, you down a rabbit hole. You didn't develop the plan. Like, let's just be honest, right? And so
Yes.
when the thoughts come, you gotta. Some of them you just have to let go. You have to move on.
Yes.
Especially, and I love to say that I sometimes have to reality check myself, right?
Mm.
So we are all really good at creating a narrative
Yes.
for situations and for our life. And so we sometimes have to stop and like, is this really the truth though?
Mm.
Do you really not have any friends? Is it really true that nobody cares? Nobody loves you? Is that really the truth? And I love when you said, like, believing the report. Like, what does God say
Right.
about this?
Right.
Like, what does he say about me? And really lining up the thoughts that we're having with the word of God, what we
Yes.
know, what God says about us, because that's really what matters,
That's right.
what God says about us. And so just lining that up, because the enemy is busy. He is really, really busy, and if he can get in our head, because once we begin to think something,
That's right.
the thought, and then before long becomes an action.
That's right.
And so we have to really begin to do not let the thought take root and plant seeds. And so
Yeah.
it does take work. It requires us to be active, but
Yes.
it's worth it in the end, because if not, and it takes root, then it blooms and it grows into something, and it starts to, I like to say, it invades our flower bed. And
Yes.
I'm a yard person.
I am
And
too. I'm a plant person. Totally.
yeah, I was pulling out the driveway today, and I noticed this green something in my yard. Now the grass is dead, but
Right.
this thing is about as beautiful. It's so green.
A
I'm like, is
whole
that a
a
weed?
whole weed.
So a whole weed, girl. So don't worry. Today it's gonna get pulled up, but it's just like that. Like, I don't know what that is, but I'm about to pull it up, and
Yes.
we have to do the same thing with our thoughts and the things that have been planted or spoken, or even spoken over us, or
That's
said
right.
to us, not to allow those things to take root. So
Yes. And
absolutely.
it's interesting too with that, because like the way that we can, because like I said, we have thousands, tens of thousands of thoughts a day. So it's like,
Hmm.
okay, if I'm just sitting here thinking about what I'm thinking about, ain't nobody getting fed. The
Right.
children gonna be a hot mess. Things
Hmm.
is gonna be
Right.
rough. So, but another way that we can very quickly tune into what we are really meditating on is our feelings. Our
Hmm.
feelings are a dashboard to what thoughts are really running the show up here. So if you're with your friend, or you're thinking about your friend, or you're preparing to spend time with your friend or whatever, or after spending time with your friend, or in just being relating to someone, and you have a feeling of fear, or you have a feeling of confidence, or you have a feeling of leeriness, that you may not be able to pinpoint the thought exactly, but you'll have the feeling. You sometimes will feel that first, especially when we really
Yeah.
begin to get into self-awareness, where you can kind of
Hmm.
check in and say, what thought is creating this feeling? And
Yeah.
then, like you said, we tell ourselves stories. And this is the freedom that we have. We can believe whatever we want. We really
Yeah.
can. And but if we believe it's a fact, we won't question it. So it's really like, okay, what are the facts of what just transpired? Like if
Mhm.
me and a friend have an exchange of words and I say, they just popped off at me. Tell me what that means. What did they say? They said you should wear a different shirt, but I feel attacked. They didn't
Mhm.
attack me. Those aren't the facts. That's the story that I'm telling myself. And it's amazing because in psychology, we learn something called confirmation bias, which
Mhm.
is whatever you believe, you will look and seek evidence of what you're thinking. So if I think they attacked me, I'm going to start looking for evidence of when they attacked me. What did they say to confirm that they attacked me? They've attacked me before, and they attacked so and so yesterday. And we begin to collect evidence to support what we think to make it true in our
Mhm.
minds, even if it's just, she just said that you should put on another shirt.
Yeah.
So separating
Mhm.
the facts from the story goes a long way, especially when we're relating. And then another part of that is, why am I so quick to see someone as attacking me?
Yeah.
That's like
Mhm.
another layer of the work, because if this relationship is mirroring me, maybe I heard it as an attack because I attacked myself. I
Yeah.
didn't like the shirt myself when I first put it on. She just called it out.
Right.
Things like
Right.
that happen. I was
Yes.
on the fence,
We
and
were
she.
already insecure about the outfit. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I know. Yeah. I'm like, man, this is a lot deeper than I thought I was gonna go. Because as you're talking, I was just thinking about like those emotional triggers,
Yes.
right? Because if we have things that have happened in our life, or whenever they've happened, long ago, recent, last week, 2 minutes ago,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't address them, or we don't deal with them, then when somebody says something like what you said, like, I don't, why you wear that sweater? Now all of a sudden we feel like we got to take it outside, and they just asked us a question, but it really comes from a place of that maybe growing up, someone in your life was always
Yes.
questioning your clothes, or you're being made fun of, because
Mm-hmm.
school is rough, but it's stuff like that. And can I have a moment? Can I just be
Please
honest, right?
do. Please do.
This was something that I dealt with in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
Oh goodness, I hope this person isn't watching. I'm joking. But
Watch away.
when I was in middle school, I mean, for one of my birthdays, I got, I mean, it was this big box. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
you get that big box, you be like, oh, this gift,
Whatever.
everything. I was in middle school, and I opened this box. I mean, it was big. I mean, it's like a size of a gift your parents would get you, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a whole bunch of clothes,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they were my friend's clothes that she no longer wanted.
Okay.
And so I was like, and so, in middle school, which there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with secondhand clothes. Like, don't get me wrong, because I'd be at Once Upon a Child all the time at
Okay.
consignment, like nothing.
Yeah.
But when you were in middle school, I'm talking about myself in middle school,
Yes.
that was like, it made me question myself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so do I not like dress nice? Like, are my clothes
Mm.
good enough? Like, what? Like, why are they giving me this box, right, of used clothes?
Mm-hmm.
And they look used, like they wouldn't like their best. And
Mm-hmm.
so I really, it did something. It planted a seed, and I carried that for years.
Mm.
And then fast forward, started dating a guy who was really into fashion
Mm-hmm.
more than me,
Mm-hmm.
and he would challenge me on my clothes, like those, a lot of, it just was a lot of compounding things. So then when
Yeah.
I get married, and my husband might be like, oh, what about those other shoes to go with that? I'm like, what you said? Yeah.
I am triggered. I
Is
am
this like
triggered.
my shoe? Like, and I couldn't understand. He'd be like, wait, I just and it took a lot of years and a lot of work for me to realize that the reason that I would become so triggered, and I
Mm.
would have this big emotional response to a simple question as, well, what about the other? He didn't say the shoes I had on didn't look bad.
Yeah.
He was just wondering about another pair, if maybe they were better, but
Mm-hmm.
he didn't really,
Yeah.
so I think that a lot of times, like what you're saying, like that, we have that, there's our dashboard, like you're saying, like there's something there, but
Yes.
sometimes we don't know really what it is.
Yes.
And hopefully we can figure it out in the moment. But
Right.
if not, my hope is that we would spend some time with ourselves,
That's right.
right? And ask ourselves and really dig behind and ask ourselves the question, but why? Like, but
Hmm.
why when they said that it made me feel this way? Okay, okay. Now and keep asking the questions until we can really get to the root
Yeah.
of the problem. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like trigger is a buzzword right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I have some thoughts about it
Okay.
because I feel like as a believer, like I'm not from a clinical perspective. When I think about psychology, it is absolutely valid. It is absolutely valid and necessary to be able to label a trigger. But I think from a Christian perspective, it's like, okay, the trigger's there. Now what? Are
Mm,
we just going to try to control other people so that we're not triggered? Or, what about it? What next?
right.
And so I love your sense of awareness of, when there's a trigger, there's usually some unprocessed emotion. So
Mm-hmm.
what's happening is we hear something or something happens, and there's like this little thought loop that it takes. And it's like it goes around back to that very first instance, and all the feelings that weren't processed from the very first time that you had that thought around your clothes, all of that came back up.
Yep.
And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's what a trigger really is. But I think it's a beautiful thing because if we pay attention, especially because we have Christ, like we can pay attention and say, there's something that I need to bring to the altar. There's something here that
Yeah.
you're bringing my attention to, and
Mm-hmm.
really think about, what did I make that mean as a
Mm.
child? What am I making that mean now? And usually it goes back to, I made it mean that I'm not enough.
Yeah.
I made it
Mm.
mean that I'm not good enough, that I'm not smart enough, that I'm not beautiful enough. I made it mean something about me as a person, not just like I
Mm.
did something wrong, but like
Right.
something is wrong with me on a very
Yeah.
human level. And that's shame. And so it gives us a beautiful, I think we can look at it as a negative thing. And if we try to avoid triggers, we actually are avoiding pathways to
Mm.
things that need to be healed. So
Right.
that's why, even when I think about relationships, like I don't mind. I've grown this way. This wasn't always the case, but I don't mind necessarily having being around someone that all my triggers come up, because then I get to see, okay, this is my work. Now, I'm not saying that it feels
Yeah.
like cupcakes and rainbows and daisies.
Okay.
It don't feel
Right.
good. Okay, so I'll
Yes.
say
Yeah.
that, but it is a beautiful opportunity for me to see myself. And then
Mm.
whatever else I may need to address for that person, I can address it from a place of love. And maybe even especially if it's an intimate relationship with a spouse, I can say, when you said this, all of this stuff came up. And I may
Yeah.
have gotten quiet. I shut down a little bit. I got mad or whatever because I didn't hear you. I heard something else that happened years ago or happened last
Yeah.
week or whatever, and that's what I was reacting to. And I wasn't in a place
Mm.
to respond because I was still reacting to something that in my body wasn't resolved.
Right.
So,
Right. I think that's good. That's really good because when you said, like with our spouse, being able to
mm,
go to them and say, when you said that, this is what happened. This is what the emotions that came out. That's a place of vulnerability,
yes,
of being transparent. And I think when we
yes,
talk about the components of what a healthy relationship looks like, I think that's really important. Like whether it's your spouse or a friend or family member, whoever, kids, I mean,
mm-hmm.
we we should be able to be vulnerable and
That's right.
transparent, with those people. And if
Yes,
you can't, then the question is why not?
right.
Why is it? I have definitely had people be like, I don't really want to be that type of friend. Okay. I respect that,
Mm-hmm.
but to be in my inner circle, you gotta allow me to be vulnerable. You gotta allow me
Yeah.
to be my authentic self,
That's right.
and
That's
so
right. And it's
but if
amazing. I'm glad you brought that up too, because when there's a book called The Anatomy of the Soul,
mm,
and it is about it's a Christian neuroscientist, but a psychiatrist,
okay.
and we can actually see in the brain when we are vulnerable with other people, and we just be like, I'm gonna just be
Mm-hmm.
me, and I'm gonna be almost naked in front of someone, naked and unashamed with
Uh-huh.
another person, that's actually where we begin to see change happening. So a
Mm,
lot of times we want to change how we feel, we want to change our behaviors, but we're not willing to be known right now as we are in the middle of it with another person. We're not
mm,
willing to experience, because honestly, what that looks like is unconditional love. Because when you have
mm.
that conversation with your friend, or you have that conversation with your husband or your wife, they're not leaving. That
Right.
they're going to demonstrate to you, you can be naked. I'm going to love you anyways. I'm going to love you right here in the messiest part of it. And it demonstrates to us like you are lovable, and your lovability has nothing to do with what you do, what you look like, it being perfect, it being right. Your lovability is non-negotiable, and it's never up for question. And we get to experience that when we're vulnerable with our in our relationships.
Yeah. I keep thinking about my kids, right?
Tell
Like
me.
how we have the ability now, like, for those, raising our kids, like if we can be, like show them what it looks like to be vulnerable, and to just be comfortable,
Yes.
like be authentic, to say, you know what, I'm not perfect.
Yes.
I'm struggling with this, or even I have recently have said to my kids, I was like, it kind of made me feel bad when you
Mm,
did and Z, like sharing with them how we feel, because I think that if we can teach them at a young age, that they can carry that with them, that we're planting the seeds early, that it's
yeah.
okay to be real. Like you don't have to
Yes.
wear this mask. Like just be yourself. You know,
Mm-hmm.
learn to be comfortable in your own skin,
Yes.
learning, like just to be, because the word, just being comfortable. Like I think that is something that's a really valuable lesson that we can begin
Mm-hmm.
to teach our kid, and not just teach it, but really like walk it out, live it,
Yes.
demonstrate it.
And
Like
that's
there's a
the
difference.
thing. With kids, they are very hard. So I've heard it put this way: their observational skills are perfect. Like
Mm,
there's no one that can observe a thing like a kid. That's why they have some of the best questions, because they're not conditioned in our stuff yet.
mm-hmm.
But they
Right,
are
right.
very bad interpreters of what they
Mm-hmm.
observe. So a lot of times they'll make things about them that ain't got nothing to do with them. Mommy's sad. When I came around, she doesn't want to be around me. They interpret it wrong because of
Yeah,
just the lens that they have as humans, but they observe everything. So it's interesting to see how we pass things on through demonstration, because they are catching everything. And it's not necessarily something that we have to verbally tell them, but when we demonstrate, a perfect story. I caught my daughter people pleasing the other day. She had lied to me and her father
yeah. Wow.
about a microwave being
Uh-huh.
at school when there was no microwave. And because we were sending her to school with, food that she could warm up. My husband's a nutritionist,
Yeah,
so he's very into, things being healthy and nutritious and delicious.
yeah.
And she told us there's a microwave. And I was like, okay, great. We're sending her to school. And then all of a sudden the microwave was gone. So eventually she came clean and said, Mommy, there was never a microwave. I just told you that so that you wouldn't worry about me.
What,
And
what
I
you
was
mean?
like, yeah, she just, because we were like trying to figure out this whole lunch thing. And we were,
Okay.
trying to figure out what kind of bento box we could buy, and how do we get this food, like what can we make for her that will last, will stay warm. Like
Mm-hmm.
how we were really going through a whole bunch of rigmarole gladly to make sure that she had a nutritious, delicious lunch for
Yeah.
lunch. And she, I guess, was a little uncomfortable with us going through all the rigmarole to figure it out. And so she
Oh,
wanted to stop it. And it wasn't even for me. It was like, I don't care about the lying. I see you for trying to people please.
mm-hmm.
And I know that she got that from me, because
Mm-hmm.
there are things that I'm like, oh, don't make a fuss. Oh, no, 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 no. I got it. I got it. I got it. Like not feeling, not feeling like I can take up space.
Mm.
And
Okay.
she caught that. And I didn't have to tell her, go lie to people and tell them what you think that they
Right,
want to
right.
hear. But
Yeah,
here she is, and some of it is a human thing, but some
yeah.
of it I know comes from directly from her mama. And
Mm.
so it's a thing where, like, you're right, when we're able to not just say a thing, but we're able to do a thing and really walk it out, that is so powerful for them to get that example. And especially around thoughts and feelings, because when we look at like how a child attaches to their parent, those things go all the way through to adulthood. Like when the Bible says, train up a child in the way that they should go and they won't depart from it, I really think about that in the sense of whatever way you train them, that's the way they will go. And if you train them to bottle up their emotions, to lie, to hide, to
Yeah.
not feel like they can take up space because that's what you're doing, it doesn't say what you teach them, it says how you train them. Training is all about the actions and the hands-on. And if you're
Right. Right.
training them to express themselves, you're training them to be honest, you're training them to think about what they're thinking about, that's something that they'll take on forever.
Good. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Mm.
I'm gonna go spend time with my kids today.
And I will say this, I'll add this too. You're so funny. I'll add this too with the children thing because to me, I have two girls and it has been the biggest lesson on how you cannot control another human being.
Mm-hmm.
Because the littlest one, she is what? She's 4. But when we went to potty train her, like I couldn't. Like she was
Right.
2 and I couldn't make her do anything. It was such a
Mm-hmm.
humbling thing. And even like we want to protect them and we want to keep them safe and we want them to experience life perfectly and never have a hard day, never have a
Yeah.
rough time. And it's like, I can't do it. I can't.
Yeah.
And this is the other part of that. Would I want to if I could? We say, like, I would want to prevent them from experiencing pain. But when I think about the painful experiences that I've had and how much they've taught me, how
Yeah.
they've, like, even, how they've increased my strength, how they've increased my confidence, pain is not the worst thing to experience, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a lot of times we think we want, and we do want the best for them, but it really is a picture of how we can't control and how life is going to be 50-50. And that's okay. Like it's not meant to be happiness all the time. Because
Right. Right.
when you meet that person that is happy all the time, when someone passes away, they're happy. When tragedy strikes, they're happy. This is what we call a sociopath or a psychopath. There's a
Uh-huh.
label for people that can't have a range of emotions. So
Mm.
negative emotions are not a bad thing. It's just really being able to sit with them, and that's a skill that we have to build and hopefully teach our kids.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's a good question. Because we oftentimes do say we want to protect our kids, right? But that's a good question. Do you really? Maybe. Yeah. That's a good question to really think about. Because like you, there have been some very
Hmm.
difficult moments in my life, painful,
Yeah. Yes.
painful moments. But my goodness, the way that God had used them
Yes.
to develop me and
Yes.
to grow me, to make me who I am
That's right.
now, who I'm growing into be. There's so much. It's priceless.
Yes.
And I honestly, I always say God knows me, and
Mm.
He know, like, had He done it another way, I mean, I would love to say He could have, but God knows He chose the best way to get me to where He needed me to be, or
That's
to
right.
open my eyes to see see what needed to be changed or addressed. Like he used the best method. He knows best. And
That's
so
right.
I think when you're saying, I thought maybe if I wouldn't change it, but I would learn how to walk alongside them better,
Hmm.
and to just make sure that I'm there to just to help, to just help them in that moment.
Yes.
But sometimes, like, being honest, like, I think there's some things I went through. I didn't have anybody. There was nobody. I
Hmm.
had to really depend on God.
Yeah.
He was my everything. He was the only person that I could really go to that understood what I was going
Hmm.
through in
Hmm.
that moment, in that season in my life. And so it created a real dependence on God. And I think
Yes.
that's what He really wants, because sometimes when we have so many people around us at a habit, we turn to other people because they're there in the physical, right? Like we see them and it's just easy, but that's not the type of relationship. God doesn't want to be our last resort.
That's
He wants to
right.
be the first option. And so
Hmm.
I know we just off topic, but
It's all tied together. It's all tied together.
yes, yes. So relationships, but that's a relationship right there, though,
Yes.
right? When my relationship with God,
Yeah.
a very, very important one. I know you talk about. I'm gonna let you talk about it because you mentioned before our relationship, like how we relate to other people, how we relate with ourselves, and how that kind of translates or mirrors our relationship with God.
Yes.
You want to talk about that a
I
little bit?
will. So, so I will say it like this: how we think about ourselves, that has how implications of how we think about God. Because when we think about relationship, what's really happening is our thoughts about someone else. That's how we relating to them. So we're thinking about them. And it's interesting because you can see, this is just kind of just to drive that point home, but like, have you ever met a person where a lot of people don't like them, but then you like, I like them, like they're fine, like you're relating to that person based on your thoughts about them. Like, I think she's hilarious, and
Yeah.
it's really about your thoughts about them. So I like to think of it too, where with regards to ourselves, how we think about ourselves has implications of how we think about God. And the biggest illustration for that for me is Eve. I'll use Eve, and even though she wasn't the only one in the garden, I
Right.
will. I'll bring her up because I can relate to her.
Okay.
But when Satan came along and gave her a thought seed of God is not good, and she decided to entertain and engage that thought, and her thoughts about him influence her thoughts about herself. So if he lied, that means I'm not good enough as I am. If I'm not good as I am, if he created something that isn't good, then he's not good. So it's interesting to see like the thoughts that we have about ourselves, whether it's insecurity, whether it's negative, whether it's positive, whether it's prideful, whether it's arrogant, regardless of what it is, it has a direct implication of what we think about the God that created us. And it leads into our actions. And it's interesting too when we think about after she ate the fruit, and her eyes were open, they hid from him. They covered themselves and they hid in shame. And she wasn't really relating to who God is as a good God, as a father, as a one that created her in his image. She was relating to him based on what she thought about herself.
Yeah.
So, and it shows up in our relationships with him, with ourselves, and with others, because God created us for a relationship. When Adam was alone, he said, it's not good that man be alone. And there have been studies that have been done where little babies were given, they have two groups of babies, newly born. And the first group is the control group. They get everything they need. Everything kind of is what we would expect to see. The second group, everything is the same except for one thing. And in the second group, the baby's health was starting to decline. And it's like, what is that one thing that was different? Being held.
Oh, wow.
Relating to someone talking to them, making eye contact with them. Because it really, especially in the beginning, it begins to frame how we see, like what we know ourselves to be. And we are created for relationship. We are created to relate one to another. So, and we can't tease it apart. Like, so how I relate to you and our friendship is going to show me, and it's also going to show me how I think about my relationship with God.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, I want to talk about Eve in the garden, but we don't have time. I want to tear that apart. There's so much, because I share with you that identity is a big thing right now for me, and just kind of helping other people just really understand who. Okay.
You want to do it? You want to do it this time or next time?
I'm not going to do it. They're going to come back. Part 2, you got to come back, because Okay, I got it, because I can't. I just can't do it. Okay, we going to come back.
Okay.
Okay, Lord. Okay, so speaking, I want to get into this poll, because you just said something about just helping, like, just even with us, like, we're new friends. Like,
Yes.
can we just right? We've known each other like 2 weeks.
Yes.
We
Yes.
met through social media, like right, like I didn't know her from nobody.
Yeah.
Um, but so thankful to have you in
Mhm.
my life now and in my circle. And I posed a question, like even in our short friendship so far, I think that we have definitely have helped each other out, right? We've
Yes,
helped
definitely.
illuminate some things.
Definitely.
And so there was a poll that I put out, and where I asked the question, do we have responsibility as friends
Yes.
to hold up the mirrors for our friends? Most people said just kind of depends. Sometimes just kind of depends. Thought that was.
Mm.
I initially was going to say yes. I was
Mhm.
like, yeah, absolutely. But then I think when I answered the question, I answered it based not on what I think, but how other people, what they would want from me. Like, I think sometimes they want me to do it and the other times they don't.
Gotcha.
I personally say yes.
Yes.
I want you to hold up the mirror. I want you to challenge me in how I am, how I'm responding, because I think that that's what makes me a better person, a better friend, a better wife. Whatever hat I'm wearing, I think it just makes me better.
Yes.
So, like, what are your thoughts on that? I saw your response, but overall, like, what do you have to say about that poll?
So I have some interesting thoughts about that. So for me, for personally, I want that. I agree with you. Like I'm in the same boat with you as far as when I have a relationship, quality is above quantity.
Mm,
And I like to have someone that isn't afraid to say, boo boo, come over
right.
here, come hither. And it,
Yes.
it may not be, like, again, it may not be pleasant, it may be hard to hear, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
willing. And to me, when someone, and this is what I do as a coach, but when someone is willing to risk their comfort to tell me the truth, that really speaks something to my soul and to my spirit of like
Yeah.
I'm willing to, because it's not comfortable to tell someone, you know, yeah, this is hanging out,
Right. Right.
or
Right.
this is a blind spot that you have. That's not a
Uh-huh.
comfortable thing. So for someone to put their comfort to the side to say, hey, Shug, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I am experiencing with you, or whatever, and opening up that dialogue, I
Yeah.
appreciate that and I desire that. The other part of this, though, is I find it interesting where if you took the poll or if you're just thinking about the question now and if you answer yes or no and then take inventory of your relationships,
Mm-hmm.
my guess is that if you said no, then your relationships don't have that. And
Yeah.
that's your prerogative. And if you said yes, then your relationships do have that. And that's your prerogative. Like I feel like based on what we're wanting in a relationship, that's what we will create. So
Mm-hmm.
because you'll train people, you'll show them like, look, you'll ask, hey girl, I need some advice. I'm really thinking about this and that and the other,
Yeah.
but can you help me? And then that lets them know I'm okay with hearing things that I may not necessarily agree with. And it's interesting
Right.
too. I have lots of people in my life. I have family and friends, which we all do. I've always found it interesting to see who people go to with
Hmm.
different advice. Like I have a
Yeah.
girlfriend who will kind of hide from me when she's doing things that she thinks I wouldn't approve of, and
Okay.
then afterwards come back and be like, "Girl, this is what happened." I'm like, and she was calling people all along, but she wasn't calling me.
Because she
Or
knew.
correct.
Yeah.
I have family members the same way. Like they
Yeah.
kind of get missing, and I'm like, what's happening with them? Because
Mm-hmm.
they know this is what Jennifer is going to provide. I'm going to,
Right.
because that's kind of who I am. That's how I show up. I'm always going to question you, like, because that's who I'm having the conversation with. You can come and
Right.
tell me about what so and so did and said, but I'm always going to bring it back to you because there's power in taking responsibility for what you can take responsibility for. And I like
Right.
to empower people because I like to be empowered.
Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
those are my thoughts with that. I think it's interesting to see. And if you say no, ask yourself why not.
Mm-hmm.
Because and this is the other part of that which we've talked about is because regardless of if you say yes or no, because of what we've just been talking about with how people relate one to another and how that shows you yourself, they're holding up a mirror anyways. It's really a matter of if you want them to be forthright with it, or if
Yeah.
you're willing to really engage with what you're seeing in your relationship and in yourself. But you're gonna rub up against some things that show you yourself,
Right.
regardless.
Absolutely. Yeah. So two things, right? So I'm thinking I have levels of friendship. I mean, I have my inner circle, and I think that in my inner circle, that close circle, we are holding up mirrors all the time. We
Yes.
like, girl, like put stuff together. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
You know, we're that way, right? There's no shame. We understand that it's with love and that it's with
Mm-hmm.
our best interest. Of course, you know, we try to be tactful, right? You
Yeah.
know, and so but I think that as I move out, like if we were classifying to those that aren't as close to me, that's where that responsive sometimes depends, because
Mm-hmm.
those are the people that don't really want to know what's wrong. They aren't really comfortable with you showing the mirror, and they kind of are in a place of I got it, I'll manage it on my own. They don't like having the mirror shown to them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that maybe could it be that just based on that your relationship with those people that kind of dictates the answer that you give. Does
Yes.
that make sense?
Yes.
You know, it's kind of what I'm thinking. But my
Absolutely.
close girlfriends, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I need you to tell me, please.
And it's crazy because
Yeah.
it also sounds like for you, and I'm this way too. It sounds like it's criteria to get to the holy of holies. You know, like we have the
Hmm.
outer gate where you just an associate, then we have the
Yes.
inner where we're closer, we talk on a regular basis, we share things, but then we have the holy of holies where I
Yeah.
truly can. We've practiced being naked with each other. We've practiced being
Yeah.
unashamed. We've practiced being vulnerable. We've practiced breaking bread. And the
Yeah.
people that aren't willing to do that with you, it's kind of like they don't come. It's not like you're saying you can't come in here because you're not like this. They won't come in. You know
Yeah.
what I'm
You're right.
saying? Like
Yeah.
so you can kind of release yourself from thinking like, man, I don't choose to have these people. Like they kind of rule themselves out because
Hmm.
they
Good.
can't come in because they won't come in.
Yeah. They're okay just standing at the door looking in. They're just like, oh,
Mm-hmm. And you're okay
don't
with
have to
them
do
being
it.
there, right? It's like that's
Yeah,
fine.
absolutely. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. And I think we have to be. I think that we have to get to a place where we can be, that we are acceptant of that, because
Yes.
sometimes we want we want people to be in that close, intimate circle, and there may not be a place for them at the table. They may not. They really. Sometimes it's protection, right? Like let's just be
Mm,
honest. Like we want them to be there, but God is like, really, no. They don't need to sit at the table.
yes,
Everybody can't sit at the table,
that's right.
and that's sometimes a very difficult thing to accept, because we feel like sometimes we may feel like, well, I don't want to exclude people, or like it can come across as being not polite. But
Hmm.
I don't, we can't, you don't want to sit at the table with everybody. The table,
That's right.
you just don't want to. And so I
Right.
think we have to get to the point where we can accept that. And I
Yes.
think that also holding up the mirror sometimes, and so this was the other part two of the question, was that in holding up the mirror, is that just enough? Like, is it good enough to just hold up the mirror, or do we, begin to have those difficult conversations? Do we begin to help them on that journey of, correction? Like, where does it stop?
Mm, I think that really is going to be a discernment kind of thing, where
Hmm.
there are some people that are going to come along and you are that person to say, look, and then leave. Like there's
Right.
that thing. And then you just gotta walk on out. And
Hmm.
there's other relationships where I think we've talked about this where it's like, come on, girl, this was
Yeah.
happening. Let me hold your hair in the bathroom. Like I'm gonna hold
Right.
you up. Like
Right.
it really, it really is having that flexibility and not. But you're right. Like we can't hold on to it looking a certain way, because as
Hmm.
long as we're looking for like this is a friendship and I'm going to do this and this means when you need this you call on me, and that is mechanical, and that takes out the human aspect of it. It takes out God's sovereignty to where, because
Yeah.
there we don't
Hmm.
know what someone needs. So to be
Right.
able to be
Right.
flexible from one moment to the next,
That's good.
from one person to the next, and this time they just may need me to make them aware of it. Next time, it may be something that I can walk with them through, and then the next time after that, it may be just something I make you aware, because
Yeah.
that is one thing too, where like there's something bigger at work, and when God uses different things and uses different peoples because he has a grand scheme of things of
Mm,
like, you're not the one to give this to them. There's someone else that needs to give this to them because of what they're going to receive in the giving of it. So
yeah.
we can't try to be everything to everybody. And it goes back to what you were saying as far as like not wanting people to be in that inner circle, not wanting to control what that looks like. And a lot of
Hmm.
times we're doing that because we're going to make that mean something about ourselves. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm everything to everybody. Everyone always calls me for this and da da da. So that means I'm what? Perfect, that I'm more lovable, that I'm more this, that I'm more that.
Hmm.
And when we're trying to do that, we're also saying that we're afraid of rejection. And how
Hmm.
much more hard and hurtful is rejection going to be if you
Yeah.
need to be accepted?
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
have to have it because it's going to mean that you're a good person, that you're lovable, and that you're worthy, and that you're enough.
Right. Yeah.
You really kind of have to like let it go, and it
Exactly.
can be hard, especially when you see, your friends struggling with something, and you've told them time and time again, like, oh, babe, this is kind of what I see, this is what's happening, and they're like, la 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 la. You're like, why
Yeah.
don't they get it? And you can't take it personal. It has nothing to do with you. It has
Right.
nothing to do with you.
And that it makes me think too, though, that like you said, so sometimes God just uses us to be the one to say, here's the issue, hold up the mirror. But we're not the one that He's going to, we're not going to be a part of the process to help them.
Yes.
But sometimes it's because maybe we can be too close.
Mm,
It may be difficult for our friend or whoever to hear fully what we have to say. I think about our kids sometimes, like you tell them something 10, 20 times and the teacher says it and it's like the light went off. You're like, but I said it like 20
really?
times.
Really?
And so I think sometimes it can be that way with our friends, like,
Mm-hmm.
or our spouses, that we can be too close.
Yes.
Um, and then kind of going to what you were saying about, we have all these people at the table, like what that means for us. And
Mm-hmm.
I like the quantity over quality,
Yes.
right? Because it's about the quality of the
Yes.
people, not the quantity
That's
of the
right.
people at the table. I want quality people at my table versus, I'd rather have a good three than 50
That's
or
right.
10 or whatever, and that we can be real and we aren't wearing a mask and that we just, like you said, we're naked. This is
Yes.
who we are. We aren't, I can come and girl, I can show up in my pajamas and you won't judge me.
Yeah.
You like, girl, be yourself.
Girl, come on, I'm in mine.
Yes. I think that there's just so much value
Mhm.
in that. And
Yes.
I hope that just continue on, people can really begin to just have that in their relationships. So kind of like what you're saying, like trigger is
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like a buzzword right now. It's like
Mm-hmm.
popular. I think authentic is one of
Yes.
those as well. And so it sounds good. Like we understand what that really means and what it could look like. But the
Mm,
question is, are we really doing it? Do we really have authentic relationships? Are we really being authentic with ourselves?
yeah.
And even with God,
Yes.
right? Like if we can't, you might as well look. He already knows. Like I don't, like why are we trying to put on the front and act like we aren't who we really are? Like he knows. So
Right.
why are we playing? Like if there's
Right.
anybody you can take the mask off, it's God.
Right.
And just get
Right.
before Him and just be like, God, this is who I'm. Your child. This, you know me. You created me. This is what I'm struggling with, God.
Yeah.
This is what's going on, and just be real.
Mm-hmm.
And just allow and invite God into the situation.
Yes.
And when you don't know what to do, you just don't know what to do. You say, God, I
Right.
don't know what to do. And even with our friendships, I think that when we struggle with our friendships, just inviting God into that too. Like just we shouldn't segment. I know this isn't what we're talking about, but just segment. We like to compartmentalize our life sometimes.
Mm.
I call it waffles, because a little box. But we like to be like, God, you get this top row right here. All
Mm-hmm.
of this right here you can have. But these over here, I got it. But
Yeah.
until stuff gets jacked up, and then we're like, okay, but can you just peep your head in the door? No, 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 no,
Right.
no. That's not how it works. We invite God into all areas of our life,
That's
and
right.
so even our friendships and our romantic relationships,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the relationship is, it can be coworkers,
Mm-hmm.
neighbors. It's a relationship of some sort, and
Yeah.
so just finding healthy boundaries in those relationships is important. So
Mm-hmm.
Girl.
Yeah, and even what you were saying as far as quantity, when people want quantity, my mind goes to fear of rejection. Like you
Mm-hmm.
want everyone to say yes, you want everyone to opt in, into you. You want everyone to love you because you're afraid of what you will make it mean if they don't. You're afraid of
Yeah.
like those thoughts that you're going to tell yourself when someone
Mm-hmm.
says no, no, thank you, I'm good on that. Like we make that mean the worst thing about us. And we're afraid of that, not knowing that we're creating it. And then we're running around and running from rejection. But I actually have a quick little ebook on rejection, on how it is the window to acceptance. Because when you're told no, based on and you are really being authentic, you're like, this is who I am, this is how I show up, and you walk in that, and someone says no, it's like, okay, like it helps me know that I don't have to be, not everyone's going to need this. Not everybody wants this. Not everybody is going, like, I'm not here for everyone. It actually
Yeah.
helps me fine tune who I am and who I am not. If someone says no because they don't agree with my perspective or whatever, or they don't like my energy or whatever it is, then that no is like I get to experience continuing to stand in who I am and not be
Yeah.
afraid. Like you get to practice like, no, because I am accepted by myself. Like I accept me. And I know
Mm.
bigger than that, God accepts me. And the
Right.
people that love me accept me. So it actually
Right.
becomes like this really beautiful window into feeling what true acceptance is. Because when we're trying to be everything to everybody, most likely we are lying and we are perpetrating and we are people pleasing and we're accomplishing that, but they're not having
Yes.
a real relationship with the real version of us.
Yeah.
And we
That's so
don't get
good.
to experience ourselves having a real relationship with anyone.
Yeah. Oh,
We're rejecting ourselves.
you gonna make okay, girl. All right, listen. So we gonna schedule part two because I want to dig into. What we're talking about it's so good, and I think I'm a. So when we say that, just about being popular and being accepted by the world, when the world is loving you, it may. This is what it was in my. This is my morning time to this morning.
Mhm.
That when the world is loving me, that I shouldn't there that should be a light bulb for me. Like I should but because how does that light, because as a follower of Christ, we kind of go against the grain.
Yeah.
The world shouldn't be so fond of what I'm doing and how I'm living,
Right.
right? And so, we are a part of the world, but we're not to be of the world, like the
Mhm.
world. Like we are to be like God. And we reflect him.
Mm.
All right, girl. We got
There's
that's
so
just
much
that's
there.
that's just yeah. I know we're gonna just put a pin in that. I know we're gonna wrap up, but this is what I'm gonna say. We're gonna come back and do a part two before the end of this month is over.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm down.
because there's still more that I knew we weren't gonna get. We didn't get through half the questions. I knew that we weren't because I know us. And so
Right.
we're going to do another part two of this before the month is out because I want to talk about. I think I asked like healthy versus like a fruitful. Like if there's a difference
Mm.
healthy relationship, but there's no fruit there. I don't know.
Mm.
Or maybe it's the same. And how do we, if a relationship isn't healthy, how do we let go? Like, what do we do, or how can we fix?
Mm. That's
So
good.
we aren't done.
We're
That's
not
what I meant.
done.
So,
Not done.
if you're watching this, stay tuned because we're going to post a new date because we're going to do part two to this. And if you have questions or comments, send them our way so we can address them because we didn't get to anything, any of the questions that I had. So, but what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna definitely post a link so people can connect with you, follow you on social media on Facebook. If they want to work with you, we'll do that because I definitely want to. You're an amazing woman, and I just want people. I think you have a lot to offer, so we'll
Thank
definitely
you.
provide that in the link. This has been good. Thank you so much for joining me
Thank
today.
you. This has been a pleasure getting to know you and having this conversation. It's a much needed one by
Absolutely.
by